For so long, there has been so many arguments on the safety of GMO. This argument stems from policymakers and social media commentators and so many scholars, everybody trying to bring in their own input and opinion. In this video, I also want to make my own contributions to this discussion. But for me, I don't want to speak from the health perspective because I am not a health specialist. I don't know much about health, but looking at it from the economic perspective. And in this conclusion or in this discussion, these discussions are personal. They are just based on my personal opinion and what I feel. And they will just be purely based on economic analysis because that is what I know. And I will try to narrow this discussion in such a way that even a child of 5 or 10 years can understand what GMO is about. It's simply genetically modified seed. These are crops or seed that are modified in the lab. And obviously, the reason for that was because of increased yield or to increase output, or because these scientists are trying to produce crops that are pest resistance. Perfect, very good. But just like I said, I only want to narrow my discussion down to the economic impact or to the economic implication. Imagine Nigeria as a country. We are known as one of the most important countries in the world when it comes to agricultural production. In fact, looking back at our history, we're very good with agriculture. Look at the granite pyramid, the red oil, and all of so many crops that we are when it comes to the production of this crop, we are so self-sufficient. But now we are having a case where there are big companies that are producing this crop and they want to sell this crop to us. Very good idea to sell the crops to us. But the problem comes that for this genetically modified seed, each time you're going to plant, you need to go back to them and buy. So unlike those days where you plant and then you take part of the seed and replant it next year or in the next farming season, this is going to be completely different. All you have to do this time around, each time you plant, you have to go back. Then where is our economic independence, or where is our agricultural independence? Because this is now going to make a country like us, that has a population of more than 200 million people, to now solely rely on these foreign multinationals for our farming or for agricultural businesses. I think this is not good for food security. Okay, so obviously one of the first impacts is that it's going to make us to rely on these foreign multinationals. Don't you understand that he who controls your food controls you? Imagine a country or even a continent like Africa, with over 1.3 billion population. Imagine now relying on this. We are relying on them virtually on almost everything. And now even our food that we are producing, we have to rely on them. There's nothing wrong actually to take some seed to the lab and test and make sure, and try to see if there is a way you can be able to make them to be, pest resistance or drought resistance. Nothing wrong with that. But why do we have to go back to them every year to buy those seeds in order to plant? So we're going to talk about so many other things, okay? But this is just one of the issue, because this is going to give them absolute control of our seed, absolute control, because we are not going to have any control on our farm produce anymore, on our farm. Because if the cost of this seed goes up, the cost of the food as well also goes up, which is not good for a country. So, and these people are going to have what we call seed monopolies, because obviously they're going to be the one that will control the seed. These are big multinationals. So the second point I would like to make is about where all these local farmers, our farmers, where do you intend to put them? Because if the cost of this seed increased, that means only the big will be able to farm. So unlike those days where you see, we say the Nigerian population, more than 60% of our population are into farming, that will no longer be the case, because if the price of the seed goes up, a lot of people will be out of farming. So you're going to have the second, which is the fact that you're going to have our local farmers. You're going to displace our local farmers because a lot of them might not be able to afford those things, because we know our farmers are some of the poorest. Okay, so they are not going to access because they might not even have the money to go into such things. So this is very important. So what are you going to have? What you're likely going to have is that these farmers are going to lose their jobs, and it's going to create problem in the rural communities. So again, another point that I feel is very important is the fact that this is going to be one of the biggest threats to our food security. Just like I said, these are just my personal opinion. Okay? We have a country where more than 70 to 80% are unemployed, either unemployed, underemployed, or probably they have no skills at all to even be considered for anything. And a lot of them rely on farming. And now you are trying to control the seed by saying that we have to buy our seed from these multinationals. I think it's going to be a very big threat to our food security. So all these traditional farming methods or traditional farming practices, they will all be gone because there will be no need for them. Because after all, the seed will be imported every year, or every time you want to farm, you have to go back and buy that seed. Okay. So we're going to also have something like lack of independent research, because there are rumors or allegations that a lot of these people that you see on the social media telling you that GMO is good and they're trying to defend it, there are rumors and allegations that they were funded by these big companies in order to convince you so that you can allow them to start importing this seed. So when you look at all of this, it's definitely going to have both short-term impacts, both long-term impacts in terms of our biodiversity, in terms of the environment, in terms of our health. Imagine someone who controls your seed. Until, I don't just actually want to digress, but until recently, before we were able to have our refineries in Nigeria, after almost more than 60 years that crude oil was discovered, it was just recently that a private individual was able to build a well-functioning refinery in Lagos. And now you want to control the seed. I think this is a very bad idea that our policymakers should not even welcome in any way or in any aspect. To me, just like I said, I don't want to talk about the health implication, but for whatever it is, you know that if someone decides your crop, what happens if they poison the crop one day? I'm not saying they're going to do that, but what happens if we have something like that? What happens now? You are now seeing watermelon that lasts for maybe a year or 6 months without getting spoiled. You are now seeing mangoes that in the whole vegetation, in the whole farm of, let's say, more than 10 hectares, you are not going to see a single insect that is eating any of this thing. I think it's not good. I think what is good for them is also good for us. Back in those days when you see when you see insects eating a fruit, you now say, "Hi, this is a very good one." You also go there and pluck one and eat. But now we are not going to have. I think just generally this is not a good idea, and no one should welcome it. And after all, even these most developed countries in the world don't even want it. They're not welcoming it. Almost all the countries in Europe and America and Asia, they're not welcoming it. Why the target in Africa? In fact, why even in West Africa? We've lost control over our most important and critical mineral resources, lithium, gold, all of that. We've lost controls over them. We have no control over our oil, and now we are about to lose our agriculture. I pray and I hope that our policymakers will never allow this. Thank you. Please kindly share.